by order of arrival.
Ms. Sung, I wasn't originally intending to ask you about the letter. I was wanting to ask about other things. Some of your answers have me confused. When you call someone an intellectually bankrupt ideologue who is intent on rolling back our rights and the rights of our clients, you either mean that or you don't. I assume you would agree with me that if you're speaking of someone that way and you don't believe that, you don't have a reason to think that, that would be defamatory, would it not?
Sorry. Thank you for the question, Senator. As I stated, I did not write those statements. I take responsibility for signing the letter, and I do recognize that they were overheated.
I understand that, Ms. Sung, but I'm asking, would those be defamatory if they were not true?
The definition of defamation and the standards for defamation are complicated, but they vary depending on whether someone is a public figure. They vary in terms of whether they were statements of fact and whether they can be proven or disproven.
He was, in fact, a sitting judge at the time you made the statement. And so it's not that you're pulling them from air. You were purporting to have some knowledge of it. It's not just that you said he was a morally bankrupt ideologue who would deprive people of rights. You also said people will die if he is confirmed. There's no qualifying language in there, nothing saying we fear that this might result in decisions which could in turn result in things that would be bad for people. You called him, quote, a threat to the most vulnerable. Quote, he is a threat to many of us simply because of who we are. If you were saying that of someone and you didn't believe it was true and you didn't have a reason to make such a statement, wouldn't that be defamatory?
Respectfully, Senator, their requirements for defamation would require statements of fact, not mere rhetorical
People
advocacy.
will die if he is confirmed. Is that not a statement of fact? It's not couched in language of opinion. It's not couched in any logical syllogism talking about how this might lead to things. Nor is it ambiguous to say that he is an intellectually and morally bankrupt ideologue intent on rolling back our rights and the rights of our clients. So let's just start with that one. Wouldn't you agree that that's defamatory, if not true?
Appreciate the question, Senator. As I stated, when I signed the letter, I understood those statements to be rhetorical advocacy, not statements of fact.
Rhetorical advocacy is not a defense to defamation, not at common law, not under the law of any state with which I'm familiar. Can you tell me how that's relevant to my question?
Respectfully, Senator, as I stated before, I did not consider those to be statements of fact.
Then, okay, so I don't think it's a defense ever to a claim of defamation to say I didn't intend that as a statement of fact, if in fact you're making statements of fact. Nor are these things just rooted in the ether. You're not purporting to draw from them in the absence of any context. You're drawing from it, apparently in the context of his status as a then sitting judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. Is that not itself undermining the legitimacy of the courts? As an officer of the court, is that the sort of thing you aspire to?
Senator, as I stated, I do apologize if by signing that letter, I created the impression that I don't respect the authority of the courts or any duly confirmed Supreme Court justice. Throughout my legal career as a litigator, as an adjudicator, and as a judge, if confirmed, I would respect the authority of every Supreme Court justice. I have followed the court's precedents without reservation. I have applied them as an adjudicator, and I would continue to do so as a judge if confirmed.
When you describe his nomination as a threat to the most vulnerable and as creating an emergency, that tends inevitably to suggest that your confidence in him is so lacking that someone would be justified in doing anything they could to undermine his judicial authority. I fail to see, as I read this letter, any caveat, any reservation, anything saying, warning, we don't really mean this. And one of two things has got to be true. Either you didn't believe these things, in which case you defamed him, or you did believe this thing, in which case I find it very difficult to believe that you're going to be able to respect his rulings, as you will be bound to respect, given that he's sitting on the Supreme Court of the United States. And I'd add, finally, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important that we be able to ask these questions, and people can have legitimate concerns about a candidate without having our motives questioned, and without having our motives questioned, particularly in the context where someone has questioned the motives of a member of the Supreme Court of the United States. I find this troubling. It's a troubling trend on the committee, and it's not one that we should aspire to continue.
Senator Lee, I believe the record will show that there have been ample